Hey folks, it's your man Manny, and I'm here with Bingo, a Labrador puppy, and I wanted to talk to you about, a few things to think about when it comes to setting your puppy up for success. Okay, one thing I want to talk about right now is the leash with puppies. Oftentimes we have people bringing us puppies, and they're taking the dog on walks, and the dog might be pulling, or the dog might be doing crazy stuff. I mean, in this case, you could see she's trying to pull the leash away from me, and now she's crying and she's frustrated because the leash isn't giving in. And so one of the things to think about, when you're conditioning your leash on your dog, is to really understand that the leash, there's nothing really natural about the leash. Like, the leash is not something that your dog naturally is just going to intuitively understand. The leash is, in some senses, very confusing for a young puppy because they don't really understand the physics of how this thing is pulling them, or why is it pulling them, and they don't really understand what do they need to do in order that the leash is not tight. And when you take the dog out on a walk and you're pulling on the leash and there's a bunch of distractions, I mean, you could see somebody even walked by here on my property, the dog can become overwhelmed. And in that distracted state, it's even harder for them to figure out how the leash works and why is it pulling. And this confusion, can create frustration. And this frustration, can lead to so many behaviors that can be troublesome. And so, first thing to think about when you're using a leash with a young dog is just realize it's not something that's going to come natural to the dog. It's going to take time for them to understand it. And if you can really think about two ways to use the leash and be flexible, you're really going to succeed. Okay. And so what you want to do is you really want to think about, what can I put on the puppy, whether it's a harness or a really thick collar on their neck, where I can let them pull. They're not going to hurt themselves. They're not going to stress themselves out or freak themselves out. And if they pull on the harness or they pull on the flat collar that's really wide, it's okay. I'm going to let them pull on this hardware. And if they're very distracted, or I want to take them on a field trip, I will take them on a longer leash, and I will take them out and I will let them explore. And I'm not going to really expect that they're going to understand how the leash works because they're just a young dog and we're around distractions. So you're going to kind of separate the harness or your flat collar from some sort of training collar, whether that's a slip lead, martingale collar, halty, prong collar, Joel Silverman collar, sidekick lead from Heather Beckett, Heather's Heroes. Whatever it is, this is going to be a leash, or even if this was a no-pull harness, okay, this is going to be the hardware that you explain to the dog. When this is on you, we are focusing on teaching you the leash. We are going to have the leash on you, and we're going to pull on it, and then we're going to give you food, or we're going to give you some sort of reward for responding to it positively. We're not going to go into high distraction environments. We're not going to try to be pulling you away from things that you want to do. No, instead, we're going to have rewards, and we're going to take a few minutes at a time to practice this leash. And gradually over time, we will figure out how much distractions can you handle on the leash. We ourselves will learn how to use the leash, and together we'll understand that with whatever training collar or lead we're using, this is going to communicate to the dog training. Look at me. Stop doing that. Come over here. Sit. Lay down. Walk next to me. Okay? While at the same time, our flat collar or our harness, as you can see right now, is just to keep the dog safe. So in this case, you can see I have the dog tied up by me just stepping on the leash. She's understanding, hey, this is a flat collar. I'm not able to go anywhere right now. But the fact that she's pulling on it is not problematic to me. Okay? It's so important, folks, that we understand the leash takes time, it takes practice, takes effort by us and the dog. And the more that we are flexible in terms of understanding, sometimes the dog is going to be pulling, they're not going to be responding to the leash. We don't even have the time or the energy to work with the dog. And in those situations, we just put a flat collar or a harness on them, and we accept that they're not working well on the leash. Okay? The sooner we're going to have them doing better on a training collar, and we're going to understand, hey, now's the time they're ready to use a training collar. They're in a good state of mind. We could teach them how to do things. And if we do this, folks, we are very likely to not need training collars in the future, to not have a dog doing problematic behaviors on the training lead or on the harness. And at the end of the day, we'll have a better life with our dog. So remember, as always, folks, we don't blame them, we train them. And if we love them, we lead them. Okay, take care.